Step 4, presentation. Most good sellers like the presentation part of the sales cycle the best. It's an opportunity to demonstrate just how attentive you are during the needs analysis and just how well you understand the problems your prospect wants solved. It's also the way to answer the prospect's key question, and that's, what's in it for me? They want to know how what you have to offer is going to benefit them. And that's based on the things that you've learned and discovered or putting together in your presentation to be able to share how advertising can work to the benefit of that particular client. Your job is to let the prospect, the buyer, know that advertising with your operation will do one or more of the following things. It'll solve the buyer's problem, whatever that problem is, needs to increase sales, increase brand awareness, bring more people into the operation, whatever it may be. Save the buyer money. How cost effective is it going to be for him to advertise, and what's the benefit going to be to the bottom line? Increase sales for the buyer. Another good way to increase the bottom line. Raise the buyer's stature in the community. Perhaps the problem is that he needs a better image, she needs a better image for the company and wants to put the company in that sort of a position. Or make the buyer's work easier. Instead of having to promote in all sorts of other different ways, using your media outlet as a vehicle to do that. Why they buy. 3 key reasons why people buy, and they have nothing to do with price for the most part. Most of the time, it's going to have to deal with the quality of sellers. So keep that in mind. I mean, price is often going to be a sticking point, but it is not the only one, and it's not the major one. So why do they buy? They buy business expertise and image. They buy dedication to the customer. And they buy account sensitivity. So those things all have to deal more with a customer service sort of aspect than they necessarily do a value perspective. You as the salesperson are the one that's providing that customer service. Your attitude. A key step in any presentation is believing in yourself. If you demonstrate no faith in your ability to sell, your prospect will not develop any faith in you either. So you have to have a certain amount of confidence, a certain amount of planning and determination, a certain amount of knowledge and sharing that wisdom. You've got to be in a place where you are confident enough in yourself that you can do the job of sales, that you can do the job of creating this presentation and satisfying the customer. With affirmations, you give yourself the inner strength and the resolve to keep going. There's a lot of people out there, that many of them are not going to give you the encouragement that you need. Many times you have to find it within yourself. If you can find people to rally around you and encourage you, all the better. But you have to, yes, you have to believe in yourself. Side note here, if you get frustrated as you're going out and you're making calls, know this. While there is a lot of rejection in the sales business, if you keep going, you'll eventually get to success. 89% of sales for new accounts are made after the 5th call. So if you quit after making 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls, no, you're not going to make sales. Statistics show that it's the 5th call where you're going to start to see success. Keep going. Keep going. Credibility. You're not only delivering a presentation, you're delivering mutual trust with the prospect. Without that trust, the sale breaks down. Again, it's all about relationships, having a certain amount of trust and respect for your client. And if you have that for the client will have that for you. Your prospects should expect you to demonstrate your trustworthiness, your competence, your objectivity, looking at things from a very honest perspective, and your expertise throughout the selling process. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to be believable, and you need to have a certain sense of authenticity in the things that you do during your presentation. Sell the benefits. Make no assumptions when it comes to your prospect's needs and concerns. What that basically means is that you should not assume that the prospect is on the same wavelength as you when it comes to talking about the benefits of certain things, understanding that those things are benefits, why they're benefits, understanding the power of the medium that you are promoting. You need to make those things rather clear. You don't want to insult intelligence, but you definitely want to promote all the positive things about what it is that you have to offer. It's not just the size of the audience and its demographics, but it's also how you can deliver that audience to that advertiser. So hopefully we've done a good job of matching up message to audience, and we have a certain audience that we tout, that we have the ability to reach out to. But not only do you need to be able to reach out to that audience, you need to, in a certain sort of level, be able to make an impact on that audience so that the audience would be able to respond to the advertiser. So the rate of return on the investment the advertiser is making is going to be positive enough that it's going to be convincing for the advertiser to buy. Get to the point. Time and attention, or time and attention are, that should be R, time and attention are the chief currencies of the 21st century. Nobody has time to waste. So if you've got someone's time, you've got someone's attention, you've got a very valuable commodity. Make sure you use it wisely and efficiently. The way to get to the customer's question is to provide helpful information that demonstrates your expertise. Narrow your focus to just a few important points and stick to them. Make sure everything you say sets up your key point, then supports and illustrates it. The more you can say in a rather succinct sort of way that puts everything on the table in a interesting and compelling sort of fashion, the more effective you will be in reaching out to your potential customer. All right, some presentation tips for you now. Your presentation will stand out if you have interesting but brief stories to tell. First off, those stories should not be about you. It's not about your successes, not about how skilled you are, because the customer really doesn't care about that if they're looking to invest in advertising. They care about the success that they are going to be able to have. Not what you are all about, but what you can do for them. Make your story success stories about similar advertising campaigns for similar clients or targeted for the same audience your prospect desires. Give something that's going to be comparable to the advertiser to be able to relate to the advertiser what may be potential for his or her business. Nothing is so convincing as hard evidence that other people have done the same thing that you're asking the prospect to do. Testimonials are fantastic. And even if you've got the ability to have, perhaps an actual quote from a previous client that talks about why they were satisfied with the advertising campaign, that's something that would be helpful. But at the very least, point to examples of other clients that, again, fit this situation in a similar sort of way to be able to help make a comparison and make the offer a bit more enticing to the advertiser. Give your numbers impact. It's hard to digest numbers, so give them perspective. In other words, relate numbers to something your prospect can visualize. It may not necessarily be impactful for an advertiser to understand that you have the potential to reach 3 million people. But you could make comparisons on how effective that reach is in terms of geographic areas, in terms of the overall size pool in relation to the region. A couple examples there. In terms of investment and rate of return, charts and graphs may be helpful for you in that presentation as opposed to just reading off a list of data. So keep those sorts of things in mind. Make sure the numbers you use tell the story, not garble the issue. Best to keep figures to a minimum and use them to illustrate a point, not as the point in and of themselves. So again, this is where your presentation can really help if you have like an easel board or a PowerPoint presentation where you can show different sorts of graphics. That would help to be able to put a visual perspective on the data that you are giving. Use questions. The who, what, when, where, why, and how questions, the open-ended questions, encourage thoughtful answers in full sentences, not just a word or two. You don't want to ask questions where the answer is simply yes or no, or just perhaps a number of some kind or something like that. You want to be able to ask questions in such a way that when the prospect responds to you, they give you enough detail to be able to help you to be able to move the conversation along. By doing so, your questions will encourage participation. Your questions help you secure agreement as you proceed through the presentation. Now, this is a great point, that as you're asking questions, the questions you ask can be questions that would lead people to certain types of answers, and you can use that to your advantage in terms of building up your case for the idea of reaching a agreement on advertising. In sales, communication is your responsibility. If the client is not listening to you, it's not the client's fault, it's the presenter's fault. Don't be dull. Don't seem disinterested. Don't seem like you're not passionate about what it is that you have to offer. Have a certain amount of excitement, have a certain amount of authority, have a certain amount of confidence in all of those things. And as you have those things, also make sure that the way you're communicating is such that the flow of thought is easy to follow, that you very clearly go from one concept to the next in such a way. Think about it like any other communications thing that you do, even the things that you would record for an audio production or a video production. You want that flow of thought in such a way that the listener can follow through with what you're doing, so that the listener could be entertained or informed with the message that you're trying to present. Exact same thing here in dealing with the sales presentation. Let the customer say no. Customers have a need to say no. It helps them to be able to maintain a sense of dignity and control. So in this sort of way, it's kind of the aspect where if someone says no, it feels like that in their mind that they have that willpower, they have that discipline, they have some sort of leverage that they can use in order to negotiate with you. They need to be able to have that ability to to fight back or to refuse the things that you have to offer. But don't let it get you down. A couple of ways to deal with that. One, offer several proposals that differ in price. And we see this a lot, especially if you look at websites where they have different services they offer and different packages. A lot of times you'll see at least 3 different packages that are available. A large package, a medium package, a small package. And, of course, the more that you buy, the greater the services are that you will receive, the different perks that you'll receive, perhaps even a discount in price, depending on what the service is. Now, if you use the 3-step proposal, you should construct the one with the lowest cost so that it shows clearly how much better the medium and high cost proposals are. Kind of like what we were just talking about. The more that you invest, the more that you should be able to benefit from said investment. Tom Hopkins calls this procedure bucketing up for money and the triplicate of choice. Now, the packages that you may offer a client, some of those may be dictated by the outlet that you're working for, depending how much flexibility you have in being able to massage the rate card that your station uses for different packages. Or they may come up with their own packages and you tout those and the benefits of them. But you may have a little bit of discretion in terms of being able to offer your client certain freebies or extras. Term used in the industry quite a bit is added value, or sometimes even called bonuses. That's going to be something that, depending on the amount of license that you have from your company to be able to do those things, it's something that you can use to your advantage when putting together a presentation and a proposal. Keep your prospect involved. The more the prospect touches and feels the merchandise, the better the opportunity is for a sale. Now, in radio and television, there's not necessarily merchandise to pull off the shelf and oogle over. It's an intangible. So what do? Our intangible forms of media are made more tangible with ideas. So some examples here would be a recorded commercial. In the radio world, we call that a spec. So there would be a sample commercial that would be produced, played for the client for his or her approval. For television, storyboards would be helpful to be able to help visualize the message that is being proposed. Promotional tie-ins can be incentives as well, where in addition to an advertising package, a company would have the opportunity to either sponsor an event or provide items for a giveaway on the station. Those things can be very powerful. Media kits also make the product more tangible. Media kits contain all these different items, market and audience information. So there'll be information on demographics on the station, the signal reach, those types of things, the effective power of the station, descriptions of programming, the various shows, the on-air talent that you have, and what they are all about, personality profiles, coverage maps. Many times rate cards will be included in the media kit, so that if you do have the ability to offer different incentives, they will be able to look in another level to see what sort of savings that can be provided to them. Testimonials from other clients and press clippings, any news releases about your station that would help to be able to have your client be able to see your company in a positive light. Media kits are designed for the salesperson to use as visual aids to bring the medium alive in the prospect's mind during a presentation. An effective seller uses parts of the media kit as an integral element of the presentation to inform and involve the prospect. So again, it's another tool to be able to help you to be able to state your case as to why a client should go with you in terms of investment. Powerful words. Choose the right words and you open doors. So we're talking here about words in and of themselves and the connotation of words, the way that we perceive words to be. So when we talk to clients, for example, we don't talk to them about buying advertising. We talk to them about investing in an advertising campaign, because there's a connotation there that says that it's not just something you're purchasing, but it's something that you are putting your money towards in hopes of being able to get a material benefit from doing so. Practice using the best possible words to convey your meaning while portraying transactions in the most positive terms possible. It's not what you say, but how you say it that can make a difference between a sale and no sale. In your textbook, you'll see that there's certain types of words that you want to avoid and others that may be better. This is just a sample of the different words that could be interchanged. So those of you that are wordsmiths may have a better edge on others in terms of this. Others of you might need to invest in a thesaurus. Alternate words don't change the fact that a sale is being made, however. They simply soften the effect on the buyer and help to reduce the triggers that send red flags up during the sales process. It can also help for you to not seem as aggressive in terms of being a salesperson. They can make you more personable. They can make you more respectful. So, again, choosing your words wisely is something that is going to be very important in helping you to be an effective salesperson. The decision-making process is often more emotional than rational. By choosing the right words, you can tap the emotional side of your prospect. So many times when you're being faced with purchasing something, we can know in our minds that perhaps there's other ways to do something that may be more cost-effective for us, that may be more practical for us to do as opposed to doing something impulsive, purchasing something we don't necessarily need. But a lot of times when we buy things, it appeals to us on a certain sort of emotional level. There's a sense of fulfillment that happens, or a sense of accomplishment. Those things come into play, and they play on our feelings. If you appeal to the senses, it will help you to gain acceptance for your proposal. So while we're talking about a visual medium or an audio medium, we can talk about things like touch and smell and other types of perception that help us to be able to bring our client into the full experience of what it is that we're talking about. And to do that really helps to create a certain sort of intimacy in a way, in terms of not just making the sale, but in terms of the relationship as a whole and the whole aspect and process of putting together an advertising campaign. Helping people to be able to kind of get themselves wrapped into this vision that you are creating for them, for this solution for their business, and helping them to see the really real of sorts, what can be achieved if they were to participate with you in the advertising campaign. Pedestal words help raise the level of the conversation to be able to get from one part of the sales process to the next part of the sales process. Your textbook has different ways to do that, pages 102 and 103. In customer-focused selling, the sales process should be transparent so that the buyer makes the decision to own. As the seller, you're a facilitator who creates a logical link between the customer's need and the solution you sell. So, again, while we are trying to create a rather creative presentation, a informative presentation that states our case as best as we possibly can, we also want to be very real. We don't want to make things up. We want to tell the truth in what we truly believe would be of benefit to the client, and to make ourselves present ourselves in such a way, rather, that we're the ones that can help make that all happen for the client, and that we will be there to service the client with all those different needs. And we'll talk about servicing the client a little bit later on in more detail. But that, in essence, is the process of putting together and making a sales presentation.